Hello and welcome back to Desert DIY. If you are new here, my name is Corey. Today I'm going to be fixing up this dough box style side table that I picked up from a yard sale. And if you like doing yard sale flips, furniture flips, thrift store stuff, or trash to treasures, then please consider hitting subscribe on my channel so that you can see tons more. I have a bazillion projects coming up. I got a huge haul from a yard sale, and if you haven't seen that video yet, please check it out. You're not going to believe how much stuff I got. But this piece has seen better days. It has names carved into it, pencil drawn all over it, and just dirt and grime. I don't even want to know what's really on here. But it's nothing that I can't fix. And this piece had such good bones. I'm guessing it came from around the 1940s or 1950s. It's a little bit on the petite side compared to other dough box style side tables that I've seen. It's pretty small. So I think that kind of lends to it being a little bit older than the ones I've had in the past from the 60s. So I believe that this one is from the 40s or 50s. And that little dust catcher always falls off my sander. I don't know why I even put it back on. The first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and start sanding down the piece to be painted. There is a lot of nicks and scratches and dents on this piece. I don't want to remove all of them, but I do want to remove the very obvious ones, like that circle scratch that's in the front there. That happens when a handle gets loose or a half of it falls off, and then the handle spins around. It creates that big, huge scratch. So I just use my orbital sander to get all of the flat parts to be nice and ready for paint. I want to use 220 grit for this because 220 is really good for keeping a surface smooth and also helping paint stick really well. Now I'm just going to use the sandpaper that was on my sander and hand sand all the spots that I couldn't get with an orbital sander. The round legs can't be sanded with an orbital sander, and an orbital sander can't get in those cracks and crevices, so that's what I'm doing here by hand. Now it is time to give this piece a really good cleaning. And when I clean it, I just like to use soapy water. And since this I feel really needed to be cleaned and disinfected, I threw some pine sol in. I just recently found out that they say that pine sol also kills the coronavirus. So I thought that would be nice. It has a nice pine scent. And I really like pine sol. Who else is a pine sol fan? Let me know in the comments down below. But magic erasers really are what they say they are. They are magic erasers. If you rewind back and look at this again, you will see that there are tons of pencil marks everywhere and just a lot of crazy, weird, nasty stuff in there. And I got it all off with the magic eraser. The only downside about scrubbing with soapy water like this is that the areas where I have bare wood, like where I sanded down on the front there where the drawer or where the handle had kind of created that ring there, I did have to go back and resand it smooth again after cleaning it. I didn't show that, but I just wanted to let you guys know that because the water brings the pores out of the wood and it makes it not as smooth anymore. Now that it has dried, it is time to paint. And here is the paint color that I chose. It is a wine color, although it is really dark and the camera doesn't do it justice. It comes out really kind of red in the camera, but in person it is a very deep burgundy kind of cranberry-ish purpley. I don't know. It's just a really deep wine red. It's less fire engine red than it looks in the camera. I just loved how this color looked. I've never used a color like this on any of my projects, which is why I told you guys in my post earlier that you would never guess the color that I chose for this piece. It took about 3.5 coats. I always say a half coat because that's just touch-ups, but the 3 coats really did well. And I feel like it was just really windy. I could have probably done it in 2.5 coats had it not been so windy, and I could have gotten a better coverage on the first 2 coats. But I always start upside down and then go right side up so that I don't miss any spots. And I did not paint the underneath side because I always like to leave a little peekaboo spot of the original finish, so that way if somebody else wants to refinish this in the future, they can look back and be like, oh, that's the original color of the wood, if they wanted to go ahead and revert this back to how it was originally made. The next thing I'm going to do, now that the paint is all dry, is I'm going to take all the hardware off and throw it in a bucket, the same bucket that I used to wash this piece down with the soapy pine sol water in it. And then while that's soaking, I am going to use an 80 grit sandpaper on my orbital sander and sand off the finish completely, as well as sanding out the name that was carved into the piece and any other little drawings that had been carved into it. It was very obvious that somebody's little one had gotten a hold of a pen or pencil and just done a number on this little table. But I got all of it out and for the most part made the top look so much better. I didn't want it to look brand new because this whole piece looked really primitive and I wanted it to have that like early American primitive look to it when I was done. So the point is not to make it brand new, it is to make it look nice. Now I'm going to go over it again with 220 grit sandpaper at the very end, which is already happening right now in the video. And when you use the 220, you have to go really slow. I don't like to do the slow progression of grits, so like 80 to 100 to 120 to 220. I like to just jump right ahead to 220 and just go really, really slow and get a smooth finish that way instead of slowly building it up. Although if you want to do it a different way, that's totally okay. This is just the way that I do it. Everybody has their little ways of doing things, and this is just my way. So however you feel comfortable, you go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to just use that same sandpaper off of there and hand sand the corners and the edges. I didn't want the sander to eat up the edges. And I'm going to be staining this piece with Early American, which is funny because that was also the like theme that I was doing for this piece. I went back and forth a lot on what color stain I was going to do on this piece. I kind of wanted to do like a red chestnut color or just any kind of chestnut. I had found that on Pinterest they had a bunch of neat things with stained in that chestnut color, but I couldn't find it in the store. And I had Early American stain already and there wasn't much left in the can, so I thought it would be good to use it up on this project. And I had bought red mahogany just in case, because mahogany is also a really rich color that I thought would go well with that wine base. But this Early American came out perfectly, and I would not change it for anything. It's so perfectly like golden, but still a little bit red. And then I just clean up all the dust. Usually I use my blower for this, but I didn't have it plugged in, and I didn't feel like pulling it out. It's really heavy. So I just did this part by hand and just dry brushed all the corners to get the dust out of the corners. I know I never use wax, but this time I'm going to. My friend Melanie, who gives me tons of furniture advice and paints, and she's just amazing. She knows way more than I do, and I tell her all the time that she needs to start a channel. So maybe one day she will, and if she does, I will share it with you. But she gave me this Annie Sloan wax, the dark wax, and I just wanted to try it out. And I thought that it would work really well because wax kind of gives off that Early American vibe because they didn't really have polyacrylic and stuff back then, so they would seal things with waxes and oils. So I wanted to kind of keep going with that feel, and I thought that this dark wax would help deepen the color of the stain. And then as I was going, I realized that the sheen on the top was more matte and just different than the satin finish, although the paint was supposed to be satin and it came out way glossier than I thought it was going to be, and that's kind of a downside to using spray paint. That can happen. But I decided to just go over the entire thing with that dark wax, and once it's all done, like you've covered the whole piece nicely, you let it sit for a while and then you come back and hand buff it with a lint-free rag. I did 2 coats on the top and 1 coat on the body, and then went back and buffed it later off camera. But while it was waiting to cure, I went ahead and shined up all of the hardware on here. It didn't turn like brand new, but I did use this brand. I just got it from the hardware store. Nothing fancy. Whatever you have, it would totally be okay too. And I just used the same toothbrush again, and you can see the difference right away of how well this stuff works. It said to use a rag, but I thought it really needed a brush because it was really grimy. And I went over it with a dry rag after I was done cleaning it, and they turned out to be clean and shiny, but not brand new looking, which is good, because remember, I'm going for that primitive Early American vibe. And originally, when I got this, it was missing one of the screws, and all of the screws are flatheads, and they're a very soft metal and strip really easily. So I had to be very careful not to strip these, putting them back in. It was a pain in the butt, I'm not gonna lie. But I did get another screw that was similar, but a Phillips head, to replace the one that was missing. And you just have to be careful you don't tighten them too much. That way the lid can close all the way. And then I just went ahead and put the handle on, cleaned the inside out, and vacuumed it up. And here is how it looks when it's done. Wait until you see how the candlelight kind of reflects in the finish of the wax. All I did to get that shiny finish with the wax was just take a dry shop towel and buff that top until it was as shiny as I wanted it to be. Can you believe what this looks like compared to what we started with? Wow, I really underestimated this red color. It looks amazing, especially with the brass hardware. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and if you liked what you saw today, don't forget to hit subscribe, and let me know what you think of the color combination and how this piece turned out down in the comments below. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about it. And always, thank you so much for supporting my channel. I am trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'm getting so close. So I hope I hit it. Thank you again. Bye!